good places to start. And we can say, well, thank you. That really helps us figure out an annual plan that he'll now advise on. So that might be a way to think about that one. And then another subcommittee to maybe help with working with us on how do we put together this annual forest management and harvest plan. And how, annual being, a lot of times we're working 3 years ahead, as you pointed out, Bill. We're working 3 years ahead on some things and being able to interact at the right time on there. So I kind of see two subcommittees. The LBL fund, I think that'd be more like, we say Jared can get in front of us, like, here's the plans. Here's the needs we have, and here's what we were thinking of doing with the LBL fund. And then you give advice on that. That may be something we can do, just do at one of these meetings off the top of my head. And if we figure out that it's not, you go, wow, that didn't work, Rick. Let's figure out another way to do that. But I can see two subcommittees that we'd want to pursue. But that one around what we've talked about today, that seems like a really rich environment for a lot of great ideas, a lot of discussion, and a lot of work that would then tie in with the heritage and the education, the diverse recreation. That could be really powerful.
Well, I
I
know
was
we
kind
need
of talking
one
off the
for-
top of my
we
head.
need heritage has to be a subcommittee, and I think recreation is going to need to be a subcommittee. There's a lot of issues we have not had the time to bring up here when it comes into recreation. I think that's something we're supposed to provide oversight with now. But I'll tell you, you have restrooms out there, hard stand restrooms that are labeled. They're handicap accessible, but you got an 8-inch step from the gravel to the platform, which nobody in a wheelchair is ever going to be able to traverse on their own. And there's issues with handicap accessibility all over LBL. And that's something we never find time to discuss in here.
Okay.
Some of it has been easy solutions when I've been able to get time to talk about it. Like there was no handicap camping in any of the campgrounds other than Piney and Hillman Ferry. And they were immediately able to put a handicap spot into Taylor Bay within a few months. But it was simply a matter of awareness that you're not offering these opportunities at other locations. So I just think recreation has to be a subcommittee because there's so many issues.
Thoughts?
So we're down to how many subcommittees? 3.
I think it sounds like 3.
Do we need to appoint people on the subcommittees?
Or does
They
it
don't
have
have
to
to
get
be.
approved first?
Or do you have to get approval first?
Well,
And they don't have to be board members, right? I mean, we can draft some of these folks, on a subcommittee, is that correct?
yeah, the
You
board
can have
member,
members.
the board member would be the chairperson for the subcommittee.
So do we need approval first, or we do try to get volunteers?
I've got to look at the regulations.
Okay.
I'm not really for sure.
So then you can put that on your message board for us, so we'll know what we need to do.
I honestly feel like there should be at least 2 members on the committee. To kind of ground everything and
Yeah.
help out.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of responsibility to put on just one member of the committee too.
Good point. And yeah,
Did we decide which 3 committees?
we sound like recreation. Recreation, heritage.
Is that the same one or 2?
I was talking about the same one, but Bill pointed out
I think
maybe
it
2
is.
things.
That the scope is so large. If you throw that together, you either overwhelm the committee or they're forced to focus on just one thing.
Yeah, and I'd put it together just because it's in one.
And you're also working with different members of the staff.
Yeah.
You know, your heritage is working with one group of people on your staff, where recreation is working with another group.
All right, what's the third one? So recreation, heritage, and then there's the forest management and harvest.
So recreation and
recreation, heritage, and forest management. That shorthand,
These are different.
correct. 1, 2,
What happened to diversity? That gotta be a issue itself.
and that sounds like with the recreation,
Yeah, I think it's part of the recreation.
I think that's the problem. That's already starting a problem. I think diversity needs to be by itself. It's got a lot, even the disability could be under diversity. Cause I had problems, you don't have a thing at this door. That you don't have one in the bathroom. That's a problem. So I agree.
So would diversity also handle the issues of handicap accessibility?
Yes. Cause that's diversity.
But then it's also gonna bleed over to recreation because
But it's recreation, like you got it written here. You got recreation, diversity, written, heritage, presentation. Heritage in the LBL is different. It could be mixed with this, but it's different. I think you need to keep it simple.
yeah, because the way I saw the conversation today was the idea of increasing diversity and recreation. We have to tell the story and that involves heritage. And so the history and the heritage was part of helping to increase the diversity and recreation.
I think it's difficult to tease these things apart because they
Yeah.
overlap.
Oh, yeah, we're constantly,
And
it's all connected.
so I guess it comes down to the board deciding what is an achievable amount of information to manage on each of one of these subcommittees, so you don't make the scope so large that it's overwhelming or you're unable to move forward.
And I think there can be some amount of discovery too. Is to, can we give ourselves some room to explore? Because again, once we get talking about these things, it is overwhelming. And then and it's good to be overwhelmed. And then we have to back up and say, okay, what chunk can we take in what time frame? And what can we take? And what can we work towards? It's a little bit longer time frame. And what's the big build out that we have to keep working towards? Those, what can we get done pretty quick? And that'll set up the longer term. What can we do that's a little bit longer term? What can we do that's, the big stuff? And it's really difficult. This isn't easy work, because again, it can be overwhelming, but you've all done this kind of work in one form or another. But I think, so get started, right? I think that's the idea of developing that charge, the intent. So we'll get the names of these, and then we can work with you on what is the deliverable, what is the charge for the subcommittee.
I guess to me, it almost, when you think of the brainstorming where you start putting up all the bullets on the paper up there, and then you start saying, okay, this is going in this subcommittee, this is going in this subcommittee. What are the major tasks that we need to accomplish in the next year? What is the appropriate subcommittee where we're not making them drink from a fire hose any worse than necessary? So part of it's gonna be what are the tasks that we're needing to do, and then how do we divide those tasks up equitably?
And would you like to do that? Well, it's 4:15. Would you like us to get some things started and you look at it online? Would you like to do this at another meeting?
We could get it started. Let us look at it online, because we can communicate so easily online. At your leisure, and maybe people start picking which subcommittee they want to be on. And wrap that up relatively quickly.
And
I don't know how we're going to figure it out today.
what we
Who's
throw
gonna
out
be on
there,
what committee.
I'd say, it doesn't have, what we put out there, it doesn't have to be super pretty, but that kind of, let's put a lump of clay up on the table and the group can start shaping it. So yeah, we have to figure out what hasn't been figured out before.
And there's another thing related to that. Let's see, what is that? We don't know what we don't know what we don't know, or something like that. No?
So some of the other next steps we got in the charter. We're gonna continue to work crosswalking the fee with the Federal Lands Recreation Enhancement Act.
Now, wait a minute. You're talking about the fees that will, are you talking about something different? What do you mean?
We're still,
There's language,
because the new law
right,
put us under the Federal Lands Recreation Enhancement Act.
right?
We're still crosswalking all the fees that are charged here. So that work is
These that you're gathering up,
right now.
camping right now.
Right now.
Okay.
Most everything is checking out. There's a couple more things we're still tracking down.
Right.
And
But didn't fee structure under the new law now become the purview of the advisory board as well, that we're supposed to be reviewing that?
Some
Yeah.
point.
that's what I say. So when we complete our crosswalk, we can also, I think, then put, like a briefing paper on, out for you to see. This is what we've come to.
So you're talking about what you should charge for things, not how you handle the money once you collect it.
No, it's right now is,
Okay, I got you.
first question is, if we're charging this fee at this site,
Right.
are we operating under the Recreation Enhancement Act correctly?
Okay.
And then site by site, charge by charge. So we're doing that analysis right now. We're mostly done.
Okay.
So we can let you know the results of that. Now, if we said, we're gonna do a market analysis and compare our fees and propose a change in fees. Then once we get into the charter, we'd be able to bring
Gotcha.
those proposals of fee changes, increases, new fees, something like that, to this group to then advise on.
So you'll do a
So
regional survey of fees to see how you stack it.
yeah, and the folks here have been doing their own market analysis and work. But under Recreation Enhancement Act, there's probably some things that are required in different formats than what the folks here are used to. So they're gonna have to get up to speed on what the package is supposed to be under the Recreation Enhancement Act, because they've never had to do that under Recreation Enhancement.
Gotcha.
But so, yeah, two things. One is, I want to work, the next step. I just want to say on the comparison, to make sure we're operating under the new law correctly for our current fees. We'll complete that analysis. We can let you know the results of that, so you know. We're not going to make any changes based on that, because, we're in the middle of we're entering into the rec season.
Right.
Any new fees, yeah, we're gonna get it into the charter. That's what we want to do, is get into the charter where this body can serve as the resource advisory committee under the Recreation Enhancement Act. My jaw's gonna be sore from having to all these words.
For a time's sake, why don't you create the committees? Put us under the committee. We can always go in the box and, ask to go somewhere else or whatever.
Yeah.
And tell us what you think our charge should be.
That's good.
Bear in mind that in the past, and you guys can pull up the records, this board spent lots of time on environmental education because we were very limited in previous board meetings. But the reason I bring that up is because fee structures, when it related to environmental education, was something that was discussed in length. And that is a funded program, and those fees were never meant to fund environmental education. In other words, we always knew that we would lose money with environmental education, but the law dictates that it's a requirement of Land Between the Lakes that it's offered. And so there may be conflicting laws, rules, and regulations when you go to review the fee structure, when it comes into like environmental education, that was expected to lose money. And is funded from other sources. The fees will not cover, like you may say Piney Campground, where our fees need to reflect operating costs. That's not the same thought process when it comes to environmental education. And your fees are not going to cover your cost of operation, and they were never meant to.
That'd be part of your appropriation.
Well, overall, the fees aren't covering all costs.
Sure, but I mean, there's federal stipulations with the LBL Protection Act when it comes into,
Yeah, what we're doing right now is this campground, check it, it fits the definitions under Recreation Enhancement Act. The Elkhorn Bison Range, does it or doesn't it fit under one of the categories of Recreation Enhancement Act? It's just a math, kind of comparison. They're just going through and does it fit, can it fit, will it fit, doesn't it fit, kind of thing. That's all that's happening right now. Is the current fees, do they cross over to the Recreation Enhancement Act?
Okay.
And overall, yes, they do. There's a couple that are still tracking down, like I mentioned, the dispersed camping permit. They're checking and working, and Michelle Mitchell and Tiffany Williams and working with Jamie here, making sure we figure all that out. So it's more of an accounting and math exercises, like lining it up. So I think with the charge, I would suggest that we we frame a good question for the charge. What's the question? And then pursue answering the question with items under that charge. So when you first see it, let's make sure we're asking the right question for what we want the subcommittee to work on. We're still working on getting the MOUs posted. That's one of the requirements in legislation. We're working on that. The minutes, that's one of the requirements. So we've always, under FACTA, posted the minutes. It's also a new law. The minutes from this meeting, I think it's what, 30 days? 90 days. 90 days that they'll be posted. Usually try for 30 after 90. So to also, maybe you can think about it, check your schedules. Again, want to make this work for you. If I guess we can gauge interest on meeting again in 2 or 3 months. And if we can gauge your interest also, if you want to meet over like a multi-day period again to work on things. Because it seems like a lot of times once you get in one day, you kind of get started and warmed up. And then it's always time to go. So just wanted to throw that out there. Maybe we can, again, you can think about it, talk about it, and we can gauge, interact with you and see what your interest is. And if there's some dates to get together.
so would the appropriate thing be to just throw some dates on the website or in the form of a poll, ask the board members, would you want to meet on the following dates, and throw some dates on the wall?
Yeah. There's a couple weeks in June where I got some leave planned.
Yeah.
Every once in a while. Hard to take off. It takes too long to retrain.
Mid-July?
I can send a poll out. And you guys can answer that through the email.
Yep.
Then you guys can just give me some dates, potential dates.
I can send it out to Microsoft Forms and make it external.
Jaws, gonna be sore. I'm making sure I'm talking acronyms. Now I know why we're talking acronyms. They have to say the same words, so all the phrases all the time. And we'll be busy trying to get that charter amended so we can also come under the new law with charter, and then we're gonna try to incorporate that, right, the resource advisory committee part of the fee stuff into that as well. I don't know what other changes we need to make in the charter, but the governor appointees would be one of the changes. But that's pretty good for next steps.
Ended up in two programs.
Yes.
There for events coming up in Spirit Town conference next little bit, so I just thought you might want to know about that. The book is going to be trying to be monitoring and documenting all the oils of the area too. So that might be something we looked at other areas also. But we're starting in Stewart County, and Home Place did a little bit of that earlier too, so just trying to get that started again. It may be a recurring yearly event, I think so. But just give you some events and ideas on those things. So.
Excellent, thank you. Steve. Well, we went over our time, but I felt like it was really important to not just cut things off. So thank you for your time today. And it's a long day, thinking, listening, and interacting. And really appreciate the interaction as well, like your ideas and questions. As far as the closing statement, I'll keep it brief. Thank you. Folks online, I know that's difficult. I've done that. Thank you for staying present, staying with us, and for providing your information, your ideas and questions as well. Thank you all so much. And the folks that stayed all day, thank you. And the staff and presenters and folks who put this together, if you make it look easy, but it's a lot of work, so thank you so much for putting it together. Very good. Any other closing?
Yeah, I've got throw one question. I sat down with my reporting authority, judge executive, and so I asked this question in an email a couple weeks ago, and I thought it'd be addressed here, but the judge executives are also wanting to be briefed on the implications of this new law, because they're as unclear on it as we are. Like, I knew that the board was going to be reduced, but I could not tell him what positions were cut. So these are, the appointing authorities have a lot of questions, and it's behooves you to set up a meeting, either one-on-one or bring them in here and bring them up to speed.
Yeah, I was planning on going to visit all of them in the next few weeks. Try to get my wheels on a little bit.
Okay, and just says they trust me, just because they're not ringing your phone every day, it's not because they're not interested. They're trying to give you some time to figure it out.
One thing I wanted to mention too, we're working on filling behind Lisa. Lately, Human Resources wants to do group vacancy announcements, so they've been doing them every quarter. So we're going to get this position. We've already started outreach on it. That's just a pre-hiring, letting people know about it. So it'll be in the next round of the group vacancy announcements we do. If you know of people, when you want to, make sure they compete for the position, we'll make sure we can get word to folks. And also, we're trying to add some capacity across our region, succession and help. So we've been adding back. A lot of forests had deputy forest supervisors, and when we had some reductions 10 or 12 years ago, we lost them, and now we're adding them back, and we're adding more back. And so we're working. It's out of sequence because Lisa left, but we're adding a deputy area manager position here. And if everything goes right, we should be able to announce that soon. I think offers have to be made and accepted and all that right now. But there should be some additional help coming here soon. Hopefully, nothing falls through and people don't say no and whatever happens. But I don't like to talk about things that haven't happened yet as definite. I don't want to jinx anything. But I forgot to mention that earlier. We are working on five of our for us that haven't had deputies, some for a while, some ever, across the region, added some deputy positions there, and LBL is one.
I think Ree's initial impression has been very good. I think she interacted with everybody today very well. And, you've got a really good team now. Here, all your folks who spoke today are encouraging folks to work with. That, so I'll vote for Ray.
I'm working on it.
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Would anybody else like to have a last word?
Been a more productive meeting than we've probably ever had since I've been coming home here, or it seems to. We'll see how it turns out.
Toes crossed. And hopefully, maybe it's because I've never done this before, so I don't know what not to do.
Sheila or Jay will probably let us know after. What were you thinking?
All right, thank you, everybody. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, what do you got?
Thank you, Marty.
Okay.
Marty.